comrades and I were talking about like how even though we hate the documentary that we were in years ago, it's called Radicalized, and even though we hate it because the documentarian was this white gay wannabe capitalist trying to make a buck off of us and our struggles, our intentions were a little bit more in alignment with anarchist and anti-authoritarian principles, and we were like, you know, wanting to tell people like, oh, go watch this instead because it's free on Tubi if you can endure the commercials. But everybody's been in a documentary at some point. It's just a really it's sad to watch. Like, we all experience so much police violence in such a short period of time, and you know, and then we continue to. But it's great for like an archival look at, you know, people trying to do what they can to like change the world, so to speak. So I give it that. It's also like weird thinking about the Occupy, what have you, but yeah, all that to go towards my explanation of what anarchism actually is. And I don't have like, you know, I should have prepared bullet points or whatever, but I've been speaking for a number of years on these topics, so I feel like I can talk to them. Anarchism was pretty much a word, like anarchy means without rulers. Anarchism and anarchists is a word that was starting to be used, I want to say in the 1800s.
Now briefly, we have had a very rich history of free forms. We have in fact had a very rich history that I would call libertarian, not in the sense of the Libertarian Party or the right-wing libertarians. That is a word that has been stolen. The people on the right who call themselves libertarians are proprietarians. Their main concern is to own property as the basis for freedom. They're not interested in freedom, they're interested in what they call liberty. Liberty means the right to turn land into real estate. Liberty means the right to own a redwood forest and cut it down if you want to. Liberty means, and there's nothing wrong with liberty in a more expanded sense, but it is so tied to property that it means literally owning the community. That is not what I mean by the word libertarian. In fact, the word libertarian was invented literally by Élisée Reclus in the 1890s when the word anarchist became illegal in France because of terrorist activities. Élisée Reclus, who was a very close friend of the Russian anarchist Michael Bakunin, and it's just worth mentioning this in passing, had to invent a word for anarchist because if you called yourself an anarchist, the flicks would immediately pick you up and throw you into jail. You couldn't call your periodical anarchist, you couldn't call yourself anarchist, you couldn't use the word in anything but a pejorative sense. So he invented the word libertarian. And it's since been expropriated, or appropriated if you like, by the right wing. We have to reclaim that word again because it has a much richer history and a much richer meaning. So when I use that word from here on in, please bear in mind the sense in which I am using it.
They started utilizing the terms libertarian socialist, or libertarian, to describe, you know, what their intentions were and to set themselves apart, who were working with more, I guess, state influenced, or certain peoples whose political ideology was more in line in seizing state power and seeing the necessity of wielding said state power to have like a working class, the proletarian dictatorship, which if you look at history, it's not a very well-known history, especially between a lot of the leftists who are looking at history now and trying to unify these political camps. There was the Internationale, and when the Internationale formed, that's when some of these differences were established between people who actually wanted to attempt to co-opt and seize the power of the state, and people who were trying to abolish the state and saw hierarchy as an issue. So these terms were created to make those distinctions between authoritarian socialists and libertarian socialists. So people who started identifying as authoritarian socialists were the ones who were trying to seize state power, and the ones who were libertarian socialists were trying to eradicate said power or abolish it. And, you know, these terms are interesting because now, especially in the context of the Americas, libertarian means, I mean, it doesn't mean something super far different, but it's definitely, you know, the don't tread on me's, the people who have like far right-wing conservative views that thinks that the state shouldn't regulate how much property they own. That becomes like, and became this kind of like anarcho-capital, like believing in the market, the capitalist market, but not believing in the state.